What's going on, everybody? It's Nick Kosko with On3 Sports, and I got the man with me today, Mike Mal, in the flesh. Well, at least over the course of a computer right here. Mike, appreciate you joining me, man. This is awesome to actually talk to you. I've been following you for a long time. You're a legend in the wrestling community, and it seems like we're now at the point with college wrestling, wrestling in general in this country, where there's not a lull anymore. You can start talking about this stuff on a mainstream level once you get past NCAAs, and it seems like this new cycle has not slowed down at all, especially at the college level.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, number one. You know, we've always said as athletes, there's no off season, right? I think that the fan base is starting to understand that more, right? Listen, the biggest ticket in wrestling, the biggest money maker, the biggest revenue generator is the NCAA tournament. Well, now we're just bleeding a little bit over, and that's a good thing. That's a wonderful thing. So I saw it firsthand, in state college at the Olympic team trials. I was, and I know that this is going to come off as like a little bit shocking to people. I was surprised at how many people went to that event, because I've been to these things, and you go to the U.S. Open, and there is, I shouldn't say a sparse crowd, but it's kind of a sparse crowd. But that's one of the best events of the year. Like, that's the one that you circle on your calendar. Is like, this is the one, dude, because you got everybody fighting to get into the world team trials. You got, guys that usually used to medal and then they didn't. Like JB every once in a while would have to go into the U.S. Open. So it's like there's generally not a big crowd for those events, but at the Olympic team trials, there were some butts in the seat. So it's cool to see the rabid NCAA wrestling fans starting to show up to these international style events.
Yeah, even if it's not showing up, just catching the last chance qualifier over the weekend, where you got which we'll dive into in a second. You got guys like Spencer Lee and Zane Rutherford, who are big in the folk style game, and obviously with Iowa and Penn State guys, or being alums of those schools. But I feel like there was more attention on something that's going on in Turkey. They don't have to go out there and fly out there to watch it in person, but I feel like there was more attention on that this week than in years past, even to go back to the last Olympic cycle. So you mentioned how, and we'll just dive into it now before we get into the actual college stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like from a viewer's perspective, at least in your mind, knowing that these two guys are two of the best guys in the world, but they still have to go through this grueling tournament after going through a grueling tournament on their own soil? And Spencer Lee, we know his injury history, but we know how talented he is, and we're waiting for that breakout freestyle performance. He had it. Zane Rutherford finally breaks through. Men's freestyles, all 6 weights qualify for the Olympics. What was your big reaction to that? And obviously seeing the support for both those guys over the course of this past weekend.
Sure. All right. I don't know if you can tell by this blonde in my beard. Age. So much so. It's definitely gray, by the way. So much so that I can remember getting up at 3:00 in the morning and watching these events, sort of like, the streams were haphazard at best. We're talking about like the London quad, when we had to qualify 60 kilos, I think it was at the time. And so, it's funny, man. Another Jersey guy that kind of comes up a lot in my feed is Gene Zanetti. And Gene does a great job of like being super candid with his thoughts as it pertains to wrestling and strength training and mental training. But he was like, why does Spencer, who is arguably one of the best wrestlers in the world at 57K, I don't think it's going to be arguable very soon. Like, I think he's going to run rampant in Paris. Like, I think he is going to make a run like you read about. Like, there's a good chance that they're not ready for him, because like there's so many things going for him now. He seems to be healthy. He seems to be able to win matches early against, and this is like the worst news for the international scene. It's the worst news because they don't know how to wrestle him yet, right? There sometimes can be like a sophomore jinx, but really what that is people just know you more, right? Like they have scouted you more. And so I think he's going to have a huge tournament in Paris. But Zane hadn't qualified, and we always have trouble qualifying 65 because it's just such a dense weight class.
Right.
But Gene Zanetti was like, the U.S. should have 6 automatic spots. I don't know if that's good. I don't think that's good, and here's why. Well, are we the best wrestling country in the world? Yeah, I believe that we are. Does that automatically give us 6 spots? No, I don't think that it does. I like the fact that we got to fight to get into these things. I like that the Pan Ams are now more competitive because of Americans. I like that these guys have a hard time. It creates drama, it creates interest. I really, truly believe that if we all kind of agree, and this is becoming arguable too, we all kind of agree that the Olympics is the epitome of the sport. You got to work to get there. You got to work to get there. And they did. And Spencer looked lights out. And Zane, in by far the dense, I think the deepest field in the world, he got it done. And he looked great doing it. So I was psyched just to see Zane. I knew Spencer was going to win. I had a good idea. But Zane, man, he showed me something. And not just about like how tough he is off the scale, right? Let's be honest, 65 is a monster cut for that guy.
Considering his physique too, it looks like he just strains himself to get there and he still gets it done.
Bro, he is, I don't know how he does it. I genuinely do not know. Like, I mean, we work with the same group that they do. Like, we work with the training lab guys. I gotta ask him. How do you? What is he? Does he detach his arm? I don't know. He's
superhuman, man.
Yeah, it's unreal. But yeah, they look great. I was super psyched.
No doubt. So I mean, it definitely generates more buzz. Considering, I mean, I know Zane's a little bit further out of college than a guy like Spencer Lee, or obviously a guy like Aaron Brooks, who comes off straight off the folk style mat, and he obviously runs through the Olympic trials and makes the Olympic team this year. So maybe that has something to do with it as well, where you have more college buzz. And it directly correlates into this Olympic year. So speaking of the college, and speaking of the college stuff, and people want to talk about Penn State all the time and how the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club has, I think it's 4 of the 6 guys in men's freestyle are from that club, which is insane. But there could be a turning of the tide at the college level, the youth level, the international level, or I should say the senior level within the United States because of David Taylor going from being Penn State's golden child, and now he's the new head coach at Oklahoma State. I feel like I got so many opinions from a lot of people over the past week plus on this hire, what it means for the sport. Personally, I love it because I think it's going to bring it brought so much juice to the sport when there's no wrestling going on, and for what he brought over in Thomas Gilman and of course Jimmy Kennedy to the staff, and you're replacing a legend in John Smith. I was working the night he was officially hired, so we banged that out quickly on our network. What was your first takeaway from seeing that news and even just seeing the buzz that, they actually might go get him instead of making it an internal hire? They're going to make a landmark decision here.
How many 4-letter words can I use on that? Here's the thing. It was shocking, right? Like, one of the coaches that I coach with every day said, you have got to be so excited as an Oklahoma State fan to about this hire. And I said, well, I'm not taking anything away from David, but I never really rooted for the laundry, right? I rooted for my friends, right? Like Eric Guerrero, Coleman Scott, I call these guys, I mean, Eric and I are pretty close, and Coleman and I not as much, but like these are friends. Like they stay at my house. I stay at their house when I'm in town. So to say that I was slightly upset when Coleman didn't get hired is Me being nice on a podcast. Now, that said, if I try my best to pull away from the situation as often as I can and not allow my personal emotions to lead what I do or say. That said, they shook the world. They look, this is as monumental a hire as you can get. And it took a tremendous amount of stones by the administration at Oklahoma State to pull the trigger on this. The easy hire is Coleman Scott. It's the easy hire. It's the safe. You make everybody happy. He is an Olympic medalist. He is, he did grow up a Cowboy. It's the easy hire. But not many good things have ever come from making easy decisions. Now, does it scare me slightly that there's no one on that staff, save Jimmy Kennedy, that has any college coaching experience? Yeah, yeah, a little bit. That's concerning, right? Like, because it's not like I know he ran a business,
right,
and he ran a club, and I'm not. Look, I was a club owner for years. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. There are so many different factors that he doesn't know are coming. And I truly wish him well. And David and I'm not close with David at all, but we do have a working relationship through P&L and stuff like that.
Right.
I truly think he's going to do well. And here's what I'm told from people very much in the know in Stillwater. He can't fail. There's just too much money. They just won't let him fail. There's just too much money involved. And when there's that much money involved, it's hard to fail. Like, I mean, if you look dollar for dollar, the teams with the most money take first. The teams with the second most money take second, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I think he's going to do just fine. And I love, looking back at it, like, a week removed from it. Yeah, shake up the world. Do it again. And I hope, I hope when it's Tom Brand's turn to step down, that the Hawkeyes make a very similar decision. Like, it doesn't have to be a Hawkeye. It doesn't. I promise you it doesn't. Because if Donnie Pritzoff isn't the number one candidate for that job, you're a crazy person. You're a crazy person. Because Donnie Pritzoff would take that job and absolutely run with it.
And me knowing Donnie for, I think, about 10 years now at this point, I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to say you don't know how good he is as a coach and a technician.
No one does.
And a recruiter.
No one does.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, I sat there in the sauna with this guy about I think it was last Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago. And I'm going, Donnie, you got to start promoting yourself. Please, let me do it. Let me be your hype man. I'll be your Flavor Flav, dude. Let me be your hype man. Because he's the best coach that nobody in the country really thinks much about. He's the best coach in the country that nobody thinks about. I mean, we all know Casey, and he has a very similar style of coaching and of being. But Donnie Pritzoff's the best coach that nobody talks about.
I would have to agree with that. just being close to that room for about a decade now at this point. Sure. I mean, he's absolutely the man. But you brought up an interesting point, which I wanted to hit on, and it relates to the portal. It relates to NIL. And here at On3, we love the portal, and we love the NIL, and we love what it brings in the coverage to college athletics. But the changing landscape, you mentioned the money. We know Penn State has money. We know Michigan has money. We know Oklahoma State has money, and guys who can put money into Oklahoma State. And then you just brought up Iowa. When that change inevitably comes, whenever Tom Brand steps down or the administration decides it's time to move on. I don't know if that's anytime soon. It could be years down the line. The money aspect of it, which I think is now going to be probably limited to a select few programs in the country, namely the ones we just mentioned, probably the Big Ten Conference in of itself.
Sure.
Maybe not even the entire Big Ten. But
No.
you can mention the 4 schools we mentioned, Oklahoma State being the one in the Big 12. Then you
Mhm.
throw in other schools like
Iowa State has a
Iowa State has a
good
lot of
purse.
money.
Mhm.
It seems like Rutgers, from a Jersey perspective, because of the Big Ten and the other athletic programs doing well, money could come in as well in the Jersey base, of course. But that's pretty much it, at least off the top of my head. And the big money programs, we just mentioned them.
Mhm.
Where does this go now? You mentioned the spending. That's essentially your team placement in NCAAs.
Oof.
How does this kind of reshape the sport now? Because it's an arms race between Penn State and Oklahoma State going into next year. Michigan's always going to have the Cliff Keen money. And Iowa, we know what Iowa has, and we know what they can supply. Iowa State, same thing. Where does it go from here?
The optimistic view is it will take guys like Adam Hall at UVU to take who Adam Hall was a part of I don't want to say failed program, but I don't know how else you could put Boise State. It's a failed experiment in Idaho. And then he was part of a very successful program at NC State. And so I think taking a guy like that and plucking him from a school that NC State doesn't have the money that Penn State does, but they do well. Like, they do have some serious donors. They do put butts in the seats. They're cash positive. That said, you take Adam Hall, you pluck him and you put him, in Provo, Utah, and now he has incentive and know-how. He is incentivized to win for sure, but he also has know-how. He knows how to put butts in the seats. He knows how to raise a tremendous amount of money to fund a program. Do I think he's going to be successful immediately? No, I don't. But I think what it's going to take now is those types of hires. Out west here, John Cerritos does a great job at Cal Poly. Is he bringing in the $100 million from the Paycom guy? No, but he is bringing in $1 million. That's a big deal for a huge, for a small program like Cal Poly. So where do I see this going? If you are not taking the blueprint that Rob Cole set forth in the late 90s at Cornell and making yourself a CEO as a head coach, and you just want to go shoot high crotch or teach high crotches, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a really, really hard time. And that doesn't mean that you can't look. Goody's on the mats every day. But he also knows the value of shaking Vanderbeek's hand all the time. He is as in tune with his donors as you can be. And I think, where is it going? That's where it's going. You got to be a CEO. You can't be a dopey wrestling coach anymore.
So it's fascinating you say that, because you also just talked to Little Rock coach Neil Arisman the other week. I talked to him right after NCAA's. It was a great story. 2 All-Americans, very young program.
Amazing.
A program like that, and again, he's an Oklahoma State guy, so he has the background of the history, the historic program, the big name program, a program that comes from money. A guy like that, where Little Rock is in the Pac-12 and conference realignment is a whole other course.
We could spend a day on that. Yes,
right.
Agreed.
So that program to me has to latch on, unless the Pac-12 survives as a wrestling conference or they merge in with the Big 12, the MAC, whatever the case may be. A guy like that who's raising money, and it seems like Little Rock is on the rise, but a program that's essentially in the middle of nowhere. A guy like that do in that case, where, I mean, again, he's still a young head coach. He could be on the mat, but he also, as you mentioned, also has to be a CEO, especially in a place where there really is nothing else. Nothing against Arkansas, but if you're out in Little Rock, you're like, all right, what are the Razorbacks doing on Saturday? Essentially, we're not.
That's it.
So, what is your take on that? Essentially,
I think one of the things that I don't know if have you ever been to Arkansas?
I have not. I've been out to the Midwest. Arkansas itself, no.
Okay. Arkansas is a weird place, and I say that very lovingly. Arkansas is gorgeous, number one. Like, it is beautiful country. Number two, it is sparsely populated, which I love. I don't like humans that much. But here's the thing that makes it really odd. The people in Arkansas don't want you to know how awesome Arkansas is. It's very strange that way. Like, they want to keep this thing that they have going a secret. And I can't really blame them, because I think everyone has the same thought process that you do. And I did, coming from the East Coast. Like, what's in Arkansas? Dude, first of all, the town of Little Rock is really nice. I took my family there. We scooted around the entire city for like a whole day. We went to museums. We did all this stuff. It was super cool. But also, that type of mindset is very conducive to having big donors that you just don't talk about. Little Rock is well-funded. They are a well-funded program. Neil's as Oklahoma nice as you can get. So he's not gonna trumpet the fact that he's got major donors, but he does. Like, he is as well-funded as some of the teams not the Penn States, Iowas, Oklahoma State, not them. They're kind of in their own little stratosphere up here. But when Art Mortori was funding Sunkist and by proxy ASU Wrestling, they had just as much funds coming in as them, right? So while I hear you, and you're not wrong in saying, well, what's in the middle? How are they going to get donors? They're going to be just fine. Like Neil is a smart dude. You know, don't forget, he wasn't just fourth assistant at Oklahoma State. He was also one of the head assistants at UNC. The dude knows his way around a big time program. So, dude, their facility, they have a standalone facility. No, nobody knows that. Like, they have a 4-mat standalone facility with a gorgeous weight room, with a beautiful sauna, who's, you know, Neil's dad helped build. It's a dope spot, dude. Like, I would send my kid to Little Rock for sure. For sure, I would send him to Little Rock.
It sounds like a facility I definitely need to visit. If I'm
it's gorgeous. Like, you got to go see it. I'm telling you. And the barbecue's good, and like, you know,
I'm going to agree with you on there. But I think anywhere in that Midwest region, you go from Kansas City, Missouri, all the way to Arkansas, all that. Food. You could sell anybody on the food. So, go win a national tournament, and then just go pig out, man. That's all you got to do out there. So I like that you brought that up too, and that a program like that, where I think right after NCAA, and this leads me to my next point about the transfer portal. They get 2 All-Americans, great guys. Stephen Little, Nasir Bailey, awesome wrestlers. And then as soon as NCAA is over, everyone's like, okay,
where are they going?
Who's going to poach them? Where are they going? Which Big 10 program, which Big 12 program they going to? So the thing with the portal is right now, and this is just based on tracking it at On3 over the past couple of years, the COVID year, that blanket waiver, I think, set a quote-unquote ugly precedent to start out, because all these guys, all of a sudden, you're like, how does this guy have a 6th, 7th year of eligibility? That, to me, is going to slow down. Probably, if it hasn't already after this past school year, it's going to do it next year. But you still see these 6-year guys, or they're taking advantage of the fact that they can get a graduate degree. But it has opened up the ability where these guys are allowed to transfer pretty much whenever they want, is so long as they keep the eligibility, so long as the intended school that they're going to go to has their academic major. And of course, NIL is a factor where it's essentially pay for play in some places. Other places can't necessarily afford that, or but they, you know, they have like, oh, here's your deal, but they have a collective that they're not talking about, or they have the collective they are talking about that has more money than anybody.
Sure.
A lot of people are saying this is bad for the sport, and on one hand it is, but the other hand is it does create that buzz, because it's like college sports are going the way of professional sports. It's going to be free agency. You see it more at football and basketball, but wrestling is getting inflicted with it right now. Now look at a guy like Andrew Ramirez entering the portal, Northern Colorado. There's rumors out there he's getting offered this amount of money from one place, Northern Colorado re-up their ante to keep him. Do you think this type of movement is going to stay at this level, or because of all these extra year guys and they want to take advantage of one more year, does it slow down now when we get into the next?
When you say slow down, what you really mean are the numbers going to go down.
Numbers could go down, and maybe
right?
maybe the amount of guys going into the portal, I would say, might slow down. For at least for the big names.
Sure.
I can't predict the guys who are riding the bench for 2 years and they want an opportunity.
You know what I love about doing podcasts? I had Rob Cole on, and I posed the same question. The episode's not released yet, but here's why I love doing podcasts. I don't like when people just agree with me blindly. I hate it. It drives me bananas. Like you don't feel exactly the same way as I do about this stuff. I've well crafted this in my head. Like I said the same thing to Rob Cole. I was like, well, it has to slow down, right? Because not as many guys are going to have the COVID year. And so he's like, well, do you mean that the demand is going to be higher because the supply will be a lot shorter? And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't think of that. and like he called me out on it. Fully called me out on it. He's like, well, you might be right. And like if you know Rob, he's as sarcastic a son of a gun as you can find. He's like, well, you might be right. It'd be the first time in the history of capitalism that's ever happened. Like, yeah, you probably like, all right, we get it, coach. We get it. All right.
It's the first time for everything, right? Yeah.
No, so here's the thing though. Now, after digesting what he said and really kind of thinking about it a lot, I still kind of feel that it will slow down, and here's why. He postures that because, so take away 6 years, it doesn't exist anymore because COVID's, we ran that through. But now he says that there's going to be guys that take summer classes, like knowing full well that they can finish in 3 years. Okay. Mm-hmm. And now they're going to All-American their sophomore year, finish up, with a red shirt, and then they'll have 2 more years of eligibility, and they're going to go get that bag. That's a lot to ask for a student athlete. I don't know that is going to be the case, but I think it's. I mean, again, I think if you're not the CEO type anymore, you're going to have a really hard time competing. You're going to have a really, really hard time competing. And so do I see it slowing down? If you would ask me a week ago before I interviewed Rob Cole, I probably would have said yes. Mm-hmm. I am far less confident that it will anytime soon, especially after he simply put it like it's supply and demand.
Right.
The supply is based on the demand, and demand is always going to be big. Everybody wants to win. And now you have a proven product. I don't know that the money that we're hearing about, I don't know that that's going to go down. I don't know that it is.
And the point I'm harping on that you brought up was the graduating early thing. We know about that. Basketball is whatever because you can go one and done and then go to the NBA draft. Sure. Football was the other thing where you hear about some of these players, whether it doesn't necessarily affect when they can go to the draft because they have to be a certain amount of time out of high school. Right. But a big case when he was coming out of college was Deshaun Watson out of Clemson. Mm-hmm. He graduated in 3 years. Some of these football players are starting to graduate before their 4 years are done, so they're completely done. They can graduate in the winter. They have all spring to not even worry about school and then just worry about the draft. It's interesting you brought that up with wrestlers because, as you mentioned, if they're that good right off the bat, they could go to a let's just call them a mid-tier school in terms of size and money. Maybe it's a mid-tier Big 12 or a Big 10 program. They are they're a 2-time qualifier, All-American, as you mentioned, their sophomore year. And you mentioned the summer classes, and they say, all right, I'm going to plan on redshirting. And then they enter the portal during that winter window. Mm-hmm. Now they pop up at another school with 2 more years to go. And all of a sudden, new training partners, more money, maybe a better support system, depending upon how they are. And then you're like, well, that guy just won a national title at Y school. Why couldn't he do it at X school? I think it's because these schools know what they have to do now. Essentially free agency. If you have a treasure trove of money, tampering or not, you can bet. We know coaches back channel. There's a way to get these guys to say, hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, you can spend 2 years with us, 2.5 years with us. You don't have to worry about just spending a graduate year. You can finish your degree here, or we have this graduate program for you at other institution.
Sure. And that, I don't want to come off as it's all about money, because I truly believe that there are people and there are places in college wrestling that don't have money still produce national champions. And that's Doug Schwab, Lee Roper at UNI. And the commodity in which they deal in is loyalty and relationships. Parker Keckheisen could have taken a monster bag.
Absolutely.
Monster bag to go to Penn State instead of who did they steal from Cal Poly?
Bernie Truex.
That's it. He said no. So while I agree, there are this isn't going to stop, but there is a commodity and there is an economy for building relationships in this sport. And I think there's always going to be kids that are just going to chase the bag. And there's always going to be kids at the other end of the spectrum that nobody talks about, like Parker Keckheisen, who stayed in Cedar Falls. God only knows why, other than relationships. Hey, man, it's hard for me to say to my son, don't take that bag.
I agree with you.
Okay, it's like, look, they're talking about life for a kid, for a 20-year-old kid, 21. That's life-changing money. That sets you up to succeed in the rest of your life, right? So, are we getting the football numbers? No, but that doesn't mean. But we're generally, and I say this as a broad stroke, we're generally smarter than they are, right? Like, and we see that statistically. Like our wrestlers do better in school, and also we have people around us that know, hey, you don't need to spend $1 of that. You need to put that in EFT, and you need to, whatever. So I think while we're sitting here talking about the economy of college wrestling right now, there is also the currency that is relationships. It's still alive. It still does mean something to some people.
Yeah, and that was a great example you brought up in Parker. I talked to him right after NCAAs, and it just seemed like, not that he didn't want to talk, because I saw him before the tournament in Kansas City. He has to do all the media obligations. He's one of the best wrestlers pound for pound in that tournament, and he's sitting back. He didn't get asked too many questions. He just wants to go out there and wrestle. He wants to do Bible study and read scripture on Sundays. Cook meals in his house and do a little technique during the week. That's pretty much it. And a guy like that, you're right. It'd be hard to see him chase a bag, take a bag, and go to another institution that has more money, most likely more resources as well. And he's coming back, most likely coming back next year, going for another national.
They didn't even have a wrestling room. They don't even have a wrestling room.
They have a 100-year-old building that was condemned, and Doug Schwab, God bless him, just said, "All right, we're gonna essentially go build a temporary facility."
Unbelievable. The what they do out there, what they do out there in Cedar Falls is absolute, and they believe they can win a national title as a team. They believe it,
and they very well
truly believe it. No, I don't think so. I love Doug. I love Lee. I do. Like, I love these guys. They're my friends. And Lee will sit here on like he's slept on that couch, and he'll tell me, he'll be like, "Yeah, we're gonna win national title." Like,
hey, they're gonna they'll keep saying it to believe it, to try to make it happen. I respect the heck out of that.
So hard.
So I wanted to ask you one of your patented questions on the Athletor podcast, which you can catch on YouTube. I'm a big fan, by the way. I watched it. Of course, I watched Goody's episode, and I watched Neil's as well as of late. But the magic wand, you ask everybody, you put them on the spot. Magic wand, what can you do to change the sport of wrestling in an instant, positive, negative, wherever the case may be? I'll let you think about it for a second, but mine is, and I believe Goody said this too. We've been talking about it forever, but it would be a dual meet championship in the sport. We need the team aspect to be up in college wrestling. I've been a big proponent of it since high school. Wasn't a great wrestler myself, but the team aspect just never escaped me, and I love that portion. So a dual meet championship, that's my magic wand for
that's a good one. It's a good one, and here's I'm going to reinforce your opinion. A good friend of ours, a family friend, was over last night for dinner. Him and he has 4 girls that wrestle, and so this coming weekend they have the association duels, which is like each county in California wrestles in dual meets against one another, and his wife. So he's going away, coming back the day before they leave. And so he was going to bring the girls up to Fresno for the duels. And his wife was like, well, maybe, you'll be tired. Maybe I'll just take them. And he said, yeah, definitely take them. Not because, I'll be so tired, but take them because you're going to have an incredible wrestling experience watching your daughters compete on a team with other girls that they might not know so well, but they're certainly like-minded, and they immediately fall into this tribal behavior where they like it's us versus them, and and so he was wise enough to say, yeah, if there's any event that you want to go see, it's this one. It's not Fargo. Fargo's a nightmare as a spectator and as a parent. It's an absolute nightmare. But if you're going to go to a dual meet tournament. You'll have a lot of fun. You like even the simple logistics. Like, okay, they always start at the lightest weight and then they finish on the heaviest weight. You know where your kid is going to be up. Like it's the logistics of it are simple too. So, to trumpet your point, yeah, the fact that we don't have a national, like a sanctioned NCAA national team title that are done in duels, it's a big miss. And so my magic wand answer, as I was thinking about it, because you didn't blindside me like I do with everyone else. You actually told me beforehand. I appreciate that. My magic wand question would be answered like this: We need to get wrestlers and coaches out of decision making like areas, okay? Because every single decision in our sport in this country, UWW is changing, right?
Yep.
Nanal Dalovic, he ain't never wrestled a day in his life, and you can tell, right? Like I love him. Like Nanal and I are cool, but like he ain't never wrestled a day in his life, okay? But he's a businessman, and he's furthering the sport. That it's in a far better place than it was in 2013 when he took over after we got canceled from the Olympic platform. But in this country, far too many decisions are made with athletes and coaches in mind, and there's just not enough. I think we need to, if we're ever going to grow as a sport, we need to start cultivating a casual fan base. And now that right there, that's like the overarching theme. And now a big part of that would be like, so if that's my answer, 1A would be you need a dual meet national championship.
Right.
ASAP. Right. You need it tomorrow. tomorrow.
Because
we can do it tomorrow. Like it's not like this.
It really isn't
like
difficult.
It's not that hard. Like it's just placing 3 more events on a calendar, and then, hey, can we just get rid of the opens? Like nobody gives. Look, I'm a dork though. Like I love watching Midlands, and I love watching, and there's value in them. There's just not any fan value. Like there's just no one wants to watch that crap.
And the casual fan will always identify, especially a casual fan of wrestling, they will identify in the team aspect of that's Iowa, that's Penn State, that's Oklahoma State, that's Michigan, whatever the case may be. Those big brands carry far more weight than it's nothing against the wrestlers. It carries far more weight than just the individual winning a national title, which is great for the individual, the school, as well as the wrestling fans. The casual fan might latch onto that, but the casual fan wants more of the team. What did our team do?
Yeah.
If I'm an alum,
and the team doesn't change, right? Like we just talked about Parker Keckheisen. I don't know how many UNI Panther fans he created by winning a national title, but he's gone in 2 years. He's gone. So are those guys that he created, are those fans that he created, are they still going to be Panther fans? I don't know. But if we make this about a dual meet championship, and we say that the Panthers won an NCAA title this year, a dual title, well, now that kid coming up in Des Moines, right? He saw Parker Keckheisen, pin somebody in the second to last match of the event, and they win. And now all of a sudden, I think he becomes more of a casual fan.
Absolutely. So that's the magic wand answer, and I'm glad I set you up for that. It created a nice back and forth right there. Mike Mal on 3 Sports with me. I appreciate your time, my man. You're a legend. Anything you want to plug? Obviously, your podcast and where everybody can find you on social media.
No, don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. Shut that shit off. Listen, trust me. You say legend. My wife, she can't even hear you. She's rolling her eyes downstairs. So, no, I appreciate that. But, no.
Well, I appreciate your time. Hope to do it again as the summer rolls on, when the season comes around, and we got to get you back out to Jersey. We got to get you inside. Used to be called the Rack, but we have to get you back inside Jersey Mike's Arena.
Jersey Mike's? Yeah. You let me know, brother. I'll be there whenever you want.
Absolutely. Mike Mal with me here on On3 Sports. Check out more content, like and subscribe to the YouTube page, and, of course, follow On3 on all social media platforms.